Hi, everybody. Welcome to the JSA Spotlight Series. I'm Jon Sheppard. Today, we're talking with Leilani Quiray, founder and CEO of Be the Change HR, a mission-driven outsourced HR company. Leilani, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Looking forward to having a very lively conversation about what you do and all the trends going on in HR. But tell us a little bit about you and how you got to this point.
Yeah. It's so funny. Anytime anyone asks that, I go straight to like what I do personally.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. I'm like, well, I'm currently in the middle of triathlon training, so I'm constantly hungry.
Yep.
I'm a huge adventurer, mountaineer, alpine climber, and I fill my off time with those types of things. And drinking tons of tea. So love that.
And she gets in a little HR work now and again also.
I swear I do. But the HR piece of it, I started my career in HR. I say that I grew up HR. So the next door neighbor next to where I lived as a kid asked my mom when I was a teenager if I wanted to work at their construction company processing payroll. And I didn't want to work in the quick service restaurants that my friends were working in. So I thought, well, instead I'm going to go work in this office. And so at the age of 16, I was learning payroll. And from there, my career just went. I've only done human resources my entire career. And along that path, I started other businesses. So my first consulting firm, I started when I was 25. I named it HR Solutions after Elle Woods of Legally Blonde because I loved the empowerment piece of that movie. And I didn't tell anybody that I actually named it that. I was just like, it's called Elle Woods. And they'd be like, because your name's Leilani? And I'm like, sure,
that sounds fair.
Right. I did a PR firm for a little bit. And then as I was climbing the corporate ladder, continued to moonlight on the side through a consulting firm I called HRologist. And then finally, one day I woke up, I was tired of climbing the corporate ladder. I was honestly tired of listening to anyone. I didn't really want a boss anymore.
Yep.
And I wanted to make my own money and build something that had a philanthropic piece to it as well. And so in 2017, I launched Be the Change HR with the idea that we were going to do HR and philanthropy under one roof. I would build a consulting firm that would do great HR work, but at the same time help make the world a better place. And I really didn't know exactly what that model would look like. Fast forward to today, we're 8 years into the business, and what we do is HR consulting for small mid-market businesses, but we also have this social impact component where we help sex trafficking survivors with job readiness skills.
I think that is fantastic. I've been involved in a lot of charities myself, and when I heard that you were doing that kind of work, I believe I mentioned to you that I had been done some work with Sanctuary for Families in New York, and they work along the same lines, and it just speaks to your heart and the type of person you are and the type of business you run. You're more than just a triathlete and a runner and a tea drinker and all those other things. So I think it's wonderful, and that part of your business, it goes a long way toward defining who you guys are.
Yeah.
And I know that all the people that work for you all have a stake in that. And the clients that you work with, they're carefully chosen, probably. So talk to us about the clients you serve.
Yeah. So most of our clients don't have internal HR, and we come in and we help them with that. So I always frame it in these 4 specific ways. It looks like the owner is doing HR, but shouldn't, because obviously they should be focusing on other things besides fielding the legality of HR, but also the strategic piece. They should have a partner with that. The next is someone within an organization is doing the HR, but shouldn't be, way too junior, bookkeeper, right? Because I think in those positions, the person who ends up doing payroll gets asked the payroll questions, gets asked the HR questions, and all of a sudden they have to scramble and figure well, now I've got to know how to do leave of absences or those types of things. And so that's the other scenario with our smaller clients. And then some of our larger clients, they have internal HR, and either the team is too green and they really need that executive oversight, or the executive's my team is so busy, they can't do this, or my team just doesn't have that specific skill set, something like maybe a compensation analysis.
Yeah, so you guys fill a role regardless of the size.
Yeah.
Regardless of the scope. As you talked about small businesses, there's a couple of years between us, and
Just a few.
And as we talked, as here, a lot of people know I talk about generationality. When you're describing those old style businesses, it was like an office manager. And that person came up through the ranks. They didn't really have any expertise in HR. And now in the days that we're living with all of the compliance work and all the regulatory stuff and everything else that goes along with it, you really do need that expertise. And if your team is too green or your solid team is overworked, you owe it to yourself to bring in a resource like you guys to kind of fill in the gaps. And I think that you probably do that very, very well.
Yeah. I mean, everything is so nuanced, right? Like, new laws are created to patch on the old ones, and it just becomes so complicated. Sure. And then there's from federal laws to state laws to even some in cities, right? Like New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. It's just so complicated, and that's just like the compliance piece. Then there's the piece of like, how do we build a happy, healthy workforce? Mm. How do we make it a great experience for our employees so that they enjoy what they do? And all this sounds like a good in theory, like a feel-good thing, but we also know that there's a business case behind it. Having happy, healthy employees means that they're productive, right? The more productive they are, the more, they'll be profitable and the company can turn a better way.
It does run to the bottom line, and it's super important to be able to combine the two. Yeah. For the longest time it was, be happy you have a job here, right? Now it's, are you happy here? And a lot of what you do goes a long way to bridging that gap. Yeah. If a business owner is looking at profitability only, they're probably not the kind of client you want. If they're looking to create a safe space for their people to learn and grow and excel, then Be the Change HR is going to be the type of company they want to engage.
And I think this is what's happened with HR through the years, right? So I came into the workforce in the 90s, and at that time we were sort of cycling out of like the personnel department. Mm-hmm. And as HR has grown and become more of like a business partner and a valued partner and someone who has a seat at the C-suite table, it's changed. Mm-hmm. Because it's no longer just, hey, process the payroll and make sure that we follow the laws. It is being a true partner with the business on aligning what the people are doing, the people aspect with the business's goals.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, some of the stuff that you're working on right now?
Yeah, everything is always on fire all the time. The last 5 years have been difficult in general because of all the things that have been happening, starting with, COVID and all the changes that happen. So I joke around that, there's always a fire, but there really is when it comes to the ever-changing landscape for employers and employees and what's going. You could just pick something out of the hat, because if it's not that, it's going to be something else. Mm-hmm. So right now there's lots of news and chatter around DEI, and that's a big thing. We had a big salary basis test federal level. So that is, to say it simply, it's how you classify someone as hourly or exempt. There was a big change that happened last July, and then all of a sudden it was repealed recently. And so there's things like that we see that come up. You just have to be really agile in HR to be prepared for those types of things. And then the regular law changes. And then it's, as it is always, I'm always cautious when people say it's really, it's a great market for, job seekers. It's not. I'm always of the camp, it is always difficult to find great talent. Mm-hmm. You have to be an employer of choice. And so that's a lot of the conversation as well. Yeah. Mitigating what someone might think the market is doing right now versus, no, you got to be a great employer. Yeah. And then attract the right folks.
Maybe stealing that, by the way, employer of choice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Definitely be stealing that, because it is very true. And it's always hard to find good people. But the reality is that people have to want to be there.
Yeah.
And your HR team is front and center. You mentioned earlier, everything's a fire. Everything's a 5-alarm fire. At the end of the day, it's, can you douse the flames? And if you can douse the flames in a way where they never get lit to begin with, then you're really ahead of the curve. Yeah. We have a mutual friend who's a labor and employment attorney, and he talks all the time about how he makes money when people mess up.
Yeah.
And they bring him and his firm in to kind of fix things. Firms and companies are spending good money bringing you in at the beginning. before things go south, to give them best practices, more information, a better way to treat their people, a better way to communicate, whether it's compliance issues or new initiatives or salaries or benefits or whatever it is. Having an organization like yours coming in from the outside, it brings a level of credibility also, because sometimes employees, quite frankly, and I know this through experience, that they're tired of listening to internal voices. And somebody from the outside who is an expert in what they do, like you are, brings a fresh message to them. And I think that's important with what you do.
I mean, totally. But even in that situation, it takes such a dialed in professional to be able to get that level of trust almost up front, right? But even in those situations, especially when it is a delicate situation, because we have that all the time. We have that currently. Sometimes clients will bring us and there's already an HR department. And so the task is really making sure that we let them know that they can trust us. But that's also an agreement with the client of like, hey, we're here for them and you, not just the client. And it's a delicate, I mean, any HR professional knows that's always the most delicate balance. You have to like walk that line. But if you have a great client who understands this is for the greater good and I need to build trust on that side too. And so just trust us. You know, sometimes there are situations where we cannot say 100% of what we're hearing. We do this culture measurement process where we'll do like the anonymous survey, of course, and everyone can fill it out, but we'll do one-on-one interviews. And in that, we let them know that what's said in that interview will not be communicated to leadership. Now, overall trends that we're seeing will be, if we see, hey, the org's having a communication issue, we'll say that. But we won't say like Jenny said that. So, you know, and that's important too, to get that trust up.
Do you find that those types of anonymous interviews and surveys, do you find them more helpful with the two younger generations, the millennials and the Gen Zers? And are they more reticent if they are a boomer like me or a Gen Xer where they don't necessarily buy into it?
I think the generations have something to do with it, but I also think it's that person's point of view and where they sit, whether in the organization and their level of trust. Because I've personally been in with a client where we're doing a measurement like that. And I've had people flat out say like, I don't trust you. I'm not going to tell you. And then 10 minutes later, it's like they say everything, right? Yeah. Which is what you really want. I do see a little bit more distrust with technology from the younger generation. So something like, hey, the survey is anonymous. Well, no, I know it. I don't think it is. Fair, right? Yeah. Okay, like fair. If you don't want to fill it out, that's fine.
Your predisposition is your own predisposition.
Right. But that's why we also do the two avenues, because we can get the data from the survey, but also to get a one-on-one, you can tell if most people don't want to talk to you, really what's going on there. And so that's helpful.
Yeah, one of the things I was talking with somebody off camera about earlier was how it's not what you're saying to people or what they're saying to you, is do they trust you? Do they like you? Do they feel like, even though you're a complete stranger to them, that you have their best interests at heart?
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how you overcome that.
Ooh, that's tough, especially when you're an outside consultant.
Sure.
Because it happens a lot. Yep. And some of the most delicate situations that we've been in is when we're an outside consultant and we know we have to exit somebody. And it is always a battle. I mean, I just did a video about this. This is always a battle of, do we pass it off as something else or do we honestly have them exit? And I'm always a fan of this. Sure. But this takes so much like care in building trust with that individual and then having it be for the greater good for everyone.
Including that individual.
Right. Mostly for that individual. Like, the business is going to be fine. Right. It's like having when you're working for an organization, you're so ingrained and you care, right? And it's like that is your life and you're dealing with a breakup of some sort. And to get someone to see, hey, obviously they'll get taken care of and maybe a separation package or something like that, and maybe some outplacement services. But also, like, you should go where you're appreciated, and you should go where you have a better path for yourself, and to have someone be able to trust you to help guide them in that way is huge.
Yeah.
And so but here's how you do it. You're a person of integrity yourself, and I think most people can see that, like, you're being honest and you have their best interests at heart.
Right. Yeah. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's so important. And the job that you have with separations, especially, you're coming into a 5 alarm fire that is generally very emotional, and you're really bringing calm to it, and you're bringing a sense to the individual that there is a future for them. It may not be with this company, but there's a future. And I think that caring nature that you bring to it, it's reflected in your team, it's reflected in your philanthropic endeavors, and it just speaks to the type of business person that you are. It's super important, and there are a lot of businesses, and you and I talk to a lot of them, that they think, oh, I'll just have a consultant come in and they'll be my machine gun. They'll be my scalpel or chainsaw, or whatever you want to use. That's not the case. You bring a caring to it. You have the people aspect to it down cold. The compliance stuff, you're keeping up with the latest compliance issues and all of that. That's important, but it's the way that you approach the business. It's all in the name. Be the change, HR. It really is.
Totally.
And people that don't see that, anybody watching this that doesn't see that, just shut off the video now because you're not paying attention. It's super important that people understand that. And what I'm finding as businesses roll forward, they're starved for caring owners like you. They really are.
Yeah.
You see it in the people you compete against and the businesses you compete against. Talk to me a little bit about how you've seen the change in businesses that are run the old school way versus more of a new school way, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about the bottom line, right? I learned the concept triple bottom line when I worked for a B Corp, of understanding like people, planet, and profit, and focusing on that. And that's been really, really big. The other is you're spot on. Our clients love us because of the like care that we give, but we also hear it from them on the other side. Like, we wish, this service provider was like you all, of like caring, and really being ingrained and wanting to be. I'll say it differently. We are building community within our clients. So we have client shares. We have like group learning calls with all of our clients coming together. We make sure that we know how we can refer to them, but also constantly are telling them like, hey, think of us outside of just HR. Like, are you going to sell your house? Do you need plumbing work done? Like, go build something somewhere else? Is your life insurance hold? Like, make sure you let us know any of it, because our networks are so strong.
Sure.
Like, let's talk about it. So.
Yeah, you want to be part of the Be the Change HR community.
Yeah.
It's a community of caring people, and you want to. They say success is not something you achieve; it's something that finds you. And because of the way you run your business or the way you run your personal life. And that's what you're doing. All these things that you've mentioned to me, both in this interview and when we've spoken before, it speaks to a community of people that you've come to know and come to love and trust and feel good about. So when you go to do something in a professional sense for someone, you know that you're giving it your all, and they know it.
Yeah.
They know that if I engage Leilani Quiray and her team, we're getting white glove service at the highest level. We're getting all the work we want done, but we're doing it in a way that's reflective of, if it's not the core value of our business, it should be the core value of our business.
You're touching on one of our core values are calming, caring, reliable, fun, and our final one is go-giver, right? like how can you just go above and beyond yourself and help someone else. And so we really, really try to do that on a daily basis.
And you do a great job of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, everything I know and hear, you guys do. So tell us, how can our audience find you?
Yeah. So any platform at Be the Change HR. I just launched a new series called Tea with Leilani, and so
we are sitting in a tea parlor today.
We are,
and we're enjoying it very much.
And then find me on LinkedIn. My name, it's hard to spell, so it'll be spelled in this Leilani Quiray. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Great to see you.